From Kern Government Television, welcome to this week's Kern County Board of Supervisors meeting, originating from the County Administrative Center located at 1115 Truxtun Avenue, Bakersfield, California. Kern County's vision is to create and maintain a customer-centered county government designed to garner the confidence, support, and trust of the people we serve. Today's Kern County Board of Supervisors meeting will convene momentarily.
Board to reconvene. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Supervisor Gleason.
Here.
Supervisor Scribner.
Here.
Supervisor Maggard.
Here.
Supervisor Couch.
Here.
Supervisor Perez.
She's over there on the phone.
Report on actions taken in closed session.
Good afternoon, Chairman Gleason and members of the board. This afternoon, your board heard item number 68 on your closed session agenda. No reportable action was taken, and that concludes my report.
Thank you, Madam Counsel. Okay, we'll kick off this afternoon meetings with a review of the consent agenda. All items that are located, the agendas are in the back on the tables. Please help yourself to one. All items listed with a CA above the item number are considered to be routine and non-controversial by county staff. Consent items will be considered first and may be approved by one motion if no member of the board or audience wishes to comment or ask questions. If comment or discussion is desired by anyone, the item will be removed from the consent agenda, will be considered in listed sequence with an opportunity for any member of the public to address the board concerning the item before action is taken. So we'll go through the agenda, and we'll see under departmental requests, Planning and Natural Resources Department, items 4 and 5, Administration and Engineering. Under Public Works Department is items 6 through 13. Under Building and Development, items 15 through 19. Under Operations and Maintenance, items 20. County Admin has items 23. Under General Services Division, item 24 through 27. Matters for executive approval is items 28 through 32. Does any member of the public wish to pull any of these items off the consent agenda? Now's the time. Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board and looking for a vote.
Motion on consent.
Second.
Please cast your votes.
The motion is approved. All ayes.
Brings us to public presentations. This portion of the meeting is reserved for persons to address the board on any matter not on the agenda, but under the jurisdiction of the board. The board members may respond briefly to statements made or questions posed. They may ask a question for clarification, make referral to staff for factual information, or request staff to report back to the board at a later meeting. Also, the board may take action to direct the staff to place a matter of business on a future agenda. Speakers are limited to 2 minutes. If you have a urge to make a public presentation, now is your time. I see no urges. Board member announcements. Seeing none, item number 3, the County Administrative Office, proposed selection of and proposed agreement with Foundation for Medical Care of Kern County for claims administration services for the point of service plan for a fee of $17.75 per employee per month, banking fees of $300 per month, and a one-time implementation fee of $38,000, with additional pass-through expenses for a term of 3 years from August 30, 2016 to December 31, 2019. Mr. Brown.
If I may interrupt.
Yes, ma'am.
If I may interrupt, Chairman Gleason and members of the board, I am recusing myself from this matter, and I've recused myself previously. My husband's law firm represents one of the competitors of the entity that's the subject matter of today's hearing. So I'm going to recuse myself, and Mr. Mark Nations, Assistant County Counsel, will be here to answer any legal questions that your board may have.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Good afternoon, Chairman, members of the board. Devin Brown, Chief Human Resources Officer for Kern County. The item before you is the proposed selection and agreement with Foundation for Medical Care for claims administration services of the county's point of service plan, health plan. In 2013, your board selected 3 administrators for the administration of the point of service plan. Those administrators were Zenith American Solutions for the claims services, Clinics Healthcare for utilization management, and Burns Consulting for network administration and development. Throughout the 3-year term, those administrators served the county point of service members and their families. And in the final year of the 3-year term, your board decided to utilize the full Anthem Blue Cross Healthcare network and end the agreement with Burns Consulting early. And during the first 6 months since that switch to Anthem, the county has experienced a significant reduction in claims backlog and a flattening of the overall plan costs for the point of service plan. This past spring, Zenith American Solutions, who was the contract administrator for the claims services, approached the county for a contract extension, but at a 50% fee increase. We determined that it was in the best interest at that time to release a request for proposal for those services. In June of this year, the Kern County HR Division released their RFP solely for the claims administration services of the point of service plan, as that contract was set to expire this December. We received 6 proposals from 6 different entities to evaluate, including the current claims administrator, Zenith American Solutions. The evaluation committee, which was comprised of county staff and union representatives, evaluated all 6 proposals and advanced 3 of the proposers to a final round of interviews and proposal discussion. After the finalist interviews, the committee recommended local vendor Health Edge Administrators, or Foundation for Medical Care. Health Edge is the current claims administrator for the county's other self-funded plan, Kern Legacy. Health Edge also does significant business with Self-Insured Schools of California and is a partner with Anthem Blue Cross in administering the claims of our local school employees and their families. The other 2 finalists, which were Advantech and Managed Care Systems, did not meet the qualifications and experience that was expected in the RFP. Specifically, Managed Care Systems, the other local vendor, could not guarantee that it would have the necessary joint administrative agreement with Anthem Blue Cross in time to assure a smooth transition and avoid member disruption. The proposal from Health Edge has a per employee per month cost of $17.75. And due to the high volume membership that exists in the point of service plan, the total anticipated annual fiscal impact to the county is $1.6 million. Kern County HR adopts the evaluation committee's recommended award to Health Edge administrators for the claims administration services of this plan and recommends that your board approve the award to Health Edge and authorize the chairman to sign the agreement with Health Edge for a term from August 30th today to December 31st, 2019. And the plan year will begin on January 1st of 2017. And that's when the per employee per month costs will begin accumulating. I'd be happy to answer any questions, but it is recommended that this time that your board award the selection of this RFP to Health Edge administrators and authorize the chairman to sign.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Let's open it up for public comment. Anybody in the public wishing to make comment on this issue? Okay, I see no public wanting to take advantage of that, so we'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the board for comment and consideration.
Motion on staff's recommendation.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please cast your votes.
The motion is approved. All ayes.
Moves on to item number 14 on the Public Works Power. Request for hearing to make a determination of public nuisance and order abatement involving removal of ash and debris as a result of destroyed structures on various parcels in the Erskine Fire area. Mr. Fenton, over to you.
Good afternoon, Chairman Gleason, members of the board. As you indicated, this is a hearing. I'm requesting your board to make a determination of public nuisance. Just a little history. On June 23rd of this year, the Erskine Fire broke out and quickly destroyed approximately 284 homes and many accessory buildings in the communities of South Lake, Squirrel Valley, and a few of them also down Kelso Valley Road. Because of the age of these homes and how they were constructed, many of them contained asbestos, heavy metals, and a lot of them also had household hazardous materials and other potentially hazardous waste. And because of that, the county health officer issued a proclamation of a local health emergency shortly after that was identified. That proclamation prompted the assistance of Cal OES Office of Emergency Services to offer up their debris removal program for those folks. So over the past few weeks, Cal OES has been cleaning many of the lots of the ash and debris and to remove those potentially hazardous materials. That's necessary, obviously, to make sure that the lots are safe for the property owners to rebuild, to make sure it's safe for the neighbors and everybody else in the general area, and also to protect the environment. It's quite an undertaking. Again, Cal OES has been working on this for a couple of weeks, and they estimate the cost to remove the materials, the asbestos, hazardous materials, et cetera, to remove them, dispose of them, and then finally test the soils to make sure everything is clean, is in the range of about $50,000 per parcel, according to Cal OES. Fortunately for the fire victims, there's no cost to the property owners to participate in Cal OES ash and debris removal program. Cal OES does require that if the property owner had insurance, typically there's a small portion of that insurance that is specific for debris removal, and Cal OES requests that that piece of insurance be provided to them. But if the property owners do not have insurance, they can still participate in the program at no cost to them. Cal OES does require the resident or the owner to complete a right of entry form, which authorizes the state to access their private property and complete the work. And fortunately, the majority of the residents have signed up for the program. We met late last week with Cal OES. They were impressed with the response and the number of people that they had submit the ROE to allow them to get this cleaned up, because that's critical. Again, because of the reasons I mentioned, where we have the potential for asbestos and hazardous materials, it's necessary for all of these property owners to clean up their lot, regardless of whether they sign up for the Cal OES program or not. These parcels need to be cleaned to help protect the area and the environment, as well as all the folks. The area is subject to strong winds. Most of the area is within a floodplain. So at some point, this ash and debris is going to be moving from one site to the other, and we're trying to get ahead of that to prevent that. So some of those owners have not signed up for the program yet. Their other option is to pursue a demolition permit from the building department. But those that did not sign up, they were included in the attachment A, Exhibit A, all of the parcels that had not signed up when we posted these things a couple weeks ago. They're identified in Exhibit A. Again, these parcels are identified by the Public Works Department and the Public Health Department to constitute a public nuisance if they remain as is. Specifically, they're in violation of Section 17.36.020 for the building or structure damaged by fire, wind, earthquake, flood, or dilapidation. Section 8.44.050 for failure to keep the premises from creating a public nuisance. And Section 8.28.110 for the accumulation of trash, junk, and debris. We posted all of those properties on August 19th and sent a letter in the mail to all of those same property owners on that same day, advising them of the notice of violation and the notice of today's hearing, which we're conducting right now. I did indicate, or it was indicated in the notice and order, that abatement will be considered achieved if they still sign up for the state program, submit the right of entry to the state, or again, their other option is to pursue a demolition permit from the building department, and if they go that road, they need to complete that demolition project within 30 days after we post the notice of determination. The property owners still have time to sign up for Cal OES debris removal program, which is currently scheduled to end on September 6th. I did listen to the presentation this morning, and I believe the date was indicated to be September 26th, but that is not the date that the state is currently looking at to complete or to stop the deadline for signing up for their program, that has been identified as September 6th, which is a week from today. Still no cost, even after today's meeting, no cost for those owners to voluntarily go down and sign up and submit the right of entry to get their lots cleaned up. Owners who decide to do this through a building demolition permit, they're subject to the same fees as anybody else would for a demolition permit, and the cost of that work is not eligible for reimbursement through the state or the county. That's all up to the individual property owner, and they're also held to the same standards that the state is cleaning up those parcels, including asbestos removal, disposal, verification. Because of the nature of the ash and debris, it's required to be hauled to a lined landfill, so they're either hauling it to Bena or Shafter. And then when it's all said and done, they're required to test the soils to make sure that the land is cleared enough, and if the soil samples don't come back favorable, then they go back and they dig some more out to get that cleaned up. With the notice, the owners were informed that if they failed to abate the nuisance and the county was required to abate the nuisance, all costs of the abatement would be assessed against the property and could be collected as a special assessment on the tax bill. It is anticipated that for those folks that don't sign up or don't initiate cleanup within the 30 days, it will be, the county will have the authority to abate the nuisance, and I will be in touch with Cal OES in hopes that they will still clean those properties up at no cost to the county or the property owners. But once they leave and demobilize, they're not coming back. So I'm hopeful to get all of these few remaining properties to the state so they can take care of that. Staff has reviewed the environmental effects of this enforcement action and has determined that the enforcement is exempt from further review under CEQA, specifically sections 15061B2, 15061B3, 15269, and 15301 of the state CEQA guidelines. Prior to the meeting, I provided the clerk an updated or a revised Exhibit A to give you the latest, greatest information on the parcels that are still outstanding. So again, on Friday, August 19th, we posted 76 parcels, and I'm happy to report that currently on that list, you'll see the many parcels that have been stricken out. It's shown in a strikeout format. There's 33 parcels remaining, and of those, 13 have already submitted their right of entry form that staff is currently processing to make sure it's valid and acceptable. So we've got 33 left, 13 of them are in process. That leaves 20 of them that we just haven't heard from. So hopefully when the staff gets through verifying the ROEs are accurate, we'll be down to 20 folks. On that list, though, unfortunately, I already have one correction to make because I was sitting in the audience. I got word number 52 on that revised Exhibit A is still uncertain whether he's cleaning this up properly or not. It's shown as being removed from the list. I would like to include him on the list as one that I'm requesting your board to declare a public nuisance because I've got conflicting info that he's participating properly or not. That's item 52, that's APN 077-25008. That concludes my presentation. One more thing I would like to mention. Also this morning, there was a brief comment about the modular housing units, the MHUs, that may potentially be coming toward for the Erskine victims. It's also going to be a requirement that those lots have to be cleaned by the state. They need to enroll for the state program and have their lots cleaned to be eligible if that project does come to fruition and those MHUs come this way. So with that, that concludes my comments. If there's any questions, I'll attempt to answer them, and otherwise it'd be appropriate to open the hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Fenton. Let's do that. Let's open the public hearing and let's hear from the public. Any thoughts? Come on down.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I'm Dennis Fox, and I really support this. I don't think I can stress it. The health department department last year at this time did an excellent job of out at Lamont, warning the people about the problems with the El Nino and the floodwaters there and runoffs. They have a lot of problems with the water out there. Here we're going to end up, that water is going to go downstream and it'll hit not only the lake, but it ends up in Bakersfield. We end up drinking it. One thing you might want to do a windshield survey on is on the septic tanks, or if there's any opens should there, when we get the rains, if that might be another survey. Might want to check the soils up above it, check and see if they're prone to mud flows. We're going to get problems on the other end of the Kern from the fires, because after the fire, that which washes into the river is considered a contaminant. And last time that happened, they were talking about all the organic matter went in and ended up out at the water agency and the plant. I wanted to bottle it, sell it to the uppies as organic water, but they didn't take that. But I seriously, I don't think you can stress enough to keep this out of our water supply. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fox. Anyone else? Okay, close the public hearing, bring it back to the board. Suppose this is mine, so I'll start off. Thank you. September 6th is the date, not the 26th, as we talked about this morning.
That's correct, Chairman.
Okay, and that's on the, so the paperwork for this thing is correct?
Correct.
This afternoon. Okay, the list that you gave us, Exhibit A, you called it, is a list of 76. What is that 76 total?
76 was the total number of homes we identified prior to preparation of this report. 76 properties that were destroyed in the fire that had not yet signed up, or at least successfully signed up with the state program and submitted a right of entry. Some of them had submitted a right of entry, but it hadn't been vetted and confirmed complete at that time.
So there's 284 homes destroyed in the fire?
Yes, that's my understanding.
76 did not submit a right of entry?
Or 76 had not been approved.
Not been approved. That means everybody else was approved?
Yes.
How long is it going to take, this whole process? Let's say we all started, everybody gets their paperwork in, deadline September 6th. We're pulling stuff out now. How long is this whole thing going to go on?
Well, the work itself is being done by the state, so I don't really have a definitive answer. My understanding is they're looking at probably the next 2 or 3 months to be doing the demolitions up there. As far as submitting the paperwork and staff to verify that it's accurate, usually that's just taking a few days. And if they submit and get their info in by September 6th, that's okay. If we run past that date trying to verify their right of entry is complete and accurate, that's fine. They're still on their way to abating the problem.
Okay, so I know this is the first step in a very long process that we're embarking on to get that community revitalized and get it moving. And we don't really have to talk about MHUs today. We're talking about just a cleanup, correct?
Correct.
So the cement slab that these homes or these ashes are resting upon, have we analyzed those cement slabs? We looked at the septic, we looked at the water. Are those part of this issue or not?
To some extent. When the state's cleaning the lots, they're identifying the location of the septic systems, and environmental health has been looking into those a little bit more. That will be one of the things we'll need to determine early on before anybody starts rebuilding in there, is making sure their septic systems are still functional. The slabs on the foundations, it depends on the location, the type of structure. Many of these were mobile home units, so there's minimal concrete involved. There might have been a patio slab, but not a structural foundation for the mobile homes. Those in Squirrel Valley and some of the other areas, they were conventional framed homes with more foundation to them. I did spend some time going through some of those foundations, and a lot of them were I'll say very questionable whether they can be salvaged or not. Many of them I saw, it was, in my opinion, they're not going to be salvageable. They got too hot and it compromised the structural integrity of the concrete. But really, I've been encouraging anybody who has maybe not signed up for the state program because they want to try and salvage their foundation. I've been encouraging them to get an engineer to do the testing and evaluation of those foundations now. Building department won't be involved in analyzing those until they come in for a permit later on to rebuild, at which time we will be asking lots of questions about the integrity of that foundation, and they will need to demonstrate that it is adequate. So I've been encouraging people, get your engineer out there now, and if it doesn't pass muster, go sign up for the state program while they're still here.
So because a site gets cleaned up does not mean that this new follow-on program where we're going to take an MHU or a mobile housing unit or temporary house and put it on that slab. There's no real relationship between the two. They're discrete, independent actions that we're going through to get that community going in the right direction.
Yes. Yeah, very, very much separate. Again, first goal is to get things cleaned up, the individual parcels and the environment. We really do not want to have many, again, obviously the majority of people have signed up for this program to get their lots clean, and we don't want them trying to resume life and bring their families back in when there's other parcels around them that have not been cleaned up. And the issue with the MHUs coming in, you're right, that's a very separate issue, but it does tie in because nobody's getting in up there until these parcels get cleaned up.
So I think it's important to just set a general tone and set the level of expectations for this anticipated recovery and what our plans in terms of cleanup and then helping get this community reestablished and what role we're playing in. It's a very complex issue. I don't want people thinking that because they get their site cleaned up, all of a sudden we're going to bring down a home and plunk it down on their cement slab. That's not the case at all. It's a completely different project, these homes, and it's a very complex problem, and I'm thrilled to say that I've got a great team of people working this issue to make determinations on who qualifies, how they qualify, and whether or not we're going to do it. Because while we have a need to satisfy the emergency and to respond as quickly as we can to people in need, we also have a responsibility to make sure that we don't create a disaster in 2 or 3 years down the road, someplace where we're going someplace where we don't want to go. So we have to balance those two things and come and satisfy that emergent need and still yet, not intrude so much that we are, creating a government mess, which government typically does. But I want to assure the public, whoever's listening to this, that we understand those issues. We're working with those issues. We have the right people in the conversation. The community's involved in those conversations, and we're moving in the right direction. I wanted to compliment you and your entire team for people who are involved. Anyone else have a question for this issue? I'm looking for a motion to support, and
So moved.
we have a motion.
Second.
Please cast your votes.
For some reason, Supervisor Maggard's aye did not get electronically entered, so, but the vote is all ayes. Motion approved.
Outstanding. Moves us to item number 21 under the County Administrative Office. A report on the Employers Training Resource Human-Centered Design Project.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, good afternoon. I'd like to turn this presentation over to your Assistant CEO and Director for Employers Training Resource, Teresa Hitchcock.
Good afternoon, Chairman Gleason, members of the board. I am pleased to report that on August 23, 2016, Employers Training Resource, as a member of the Kern Youth Partnership, received an invitation to the White House to participate in a learning exchange and celebration on Monday, September 19, 2016. The invitation resulted from participation in a national human-centered design challenge to find innovative service delivery models to transform the national workforce system. I have have a number of the participants in this project in the audience, and I'd like them to please stand up to be recognized. We have Kareem Knickerberg with Kern High School District, Brandon Evans with the Department of Human Services, Candy Getman with Employers Training Resource, and Nathan Gutierrez, who is a relatively new analyst with Employers Training Resource, who actually spearheaded this project. There were a number of other folks also involved from the Employment Development Department and City of Bakersfield. We surveyed youth from all over the county through various programs in order to get input on the types of services that youth are missing or are finding difficulty accessing throughout the county. As a result of that, the group came up with a plan to serve disconnected youth within the county. Disconnected youth in Kern County, unfortunately, we are the second highest ranking county in the entire country for disconnected youth. A full 21% or more of our youth fit the description of being neither working nor in school. And so this project was really designed to address that. I lost my mic. We also engaged Nancy Kerr with the Kern County Library System because as phase 2 of this project, we're looking at creating a youth center within the library, and Nancy's been just amazing to work with and very creative in her ideas and how we can accommodate that particular center there. So we're really excited about the opportunities moving forward with this project and taking a holistic approach to how we provide services to youth within Kern County to address the issue of disconnection. We feel that it's a very important issue in order to reduce some of the issues that we see with youth who are disconnected, such as gang activity and just general poverty. So we're really looking forward to moving forward with this project, and that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Let's go to the public and ask if they have any comments regarding this issue. Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board. Supervisor Perez.
Thank you. For starters, I want to thank Mr. Turnipseed, who's in the back of the room. He sent me an email one day, as he had sent around to our entire work training group, workforce group, that highlighted that Bakersfield youth, of the 100 largest metropolitan areas in the country, is in the second highest youth disconnected rate, and only 0.02 behind Memphis, Tennessee. And if you consider the rural parts of Kern County, we are very likely at the very, very top of a very unfortunate, tragic list that details how our young people ages 16 to 24 are neither in school or on their way to being employed. This is devastating for our economy. This is devastating for economic development prospects, and certainly for employers that have their eye on Kern County. This is influencing their decision-making process. And so luckily we're part of a dynamic team that includes Mr. Turnipseed, that includes the school districts, that includes the realtors, a whole host of folks that have a strong eye and interest in ensuring that our emerging populations are prepared, skilled, trained, and ready to compete with not only the youth in this community, but all around the state and the country. So for starters, thank you, Mr. Turnipseed, for having your constant eye on what's happening and how these factors are being gauged around the country, but also to Ms. Teresa Hitchcock, who's really taken this issue by the reins, and now, of course, recognition by the White House is extraordinary. We've had several training opportunities of young people. We've brought Dress for Success in, Goodwill Industries that have helped us train, dress, and prepare these young people to build up their resumes, apply for jobs, and clearly get ready to compete in a market that is incredibly complicated and always evolving. So thank you to both of you. I think this is exciting. It highlights a great need we have here, and one that's likely going to be with us for some time. But this is exceptional, because if we can incorporate into our high school districts the notion that we have to prepare our young people, soft skills, hard skills, early in life, to understand understand what the markets look like and what's expected of private employers and government employers. We really can be on the cutting edge of giving them a shot at making it and not, having a lifetime of being dependent on others and the government for that matter. So this is exciting. Thank you for the partnership. I know there's lots of people involved in that, but it's just the beginning, Teresa. We've done a lot, and I know there's a lot more coming. So thank you for taking it so seriously and doing something about youth disconnection rate in Kern County. So hats off to you. I'd make a motion, I guess, to receive and file, and a motion to congratulate Teresa and Mr. Turnipseed and all the many, many others that are in partnership on this. So thank you.
We have a motion. Please cast your votes.
Second.
The motion is approved, all ayes.
Outstanding. Have a fun trip. Item number 22, report on options for performance audits and a county-wide strategic plan. Ms. Nyla.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, good afternoon again. This letter proposes that the county engage in a multi-pronged effort to maximize the delivery of services to the public while consuming the fewest taxpayer resources possible. Ultimately, by 2020, Kern County will be the most cost-efficient county government in the state of California. Why are we doing this? Quite simply stated, we do not have the resources to continue to operate the way we currently operate. We have to not just look different, we have to be different. We either lead our way to a new future or we let our circumstances do it for us. How are we going to do this? We have to change Kern County's culture to one of a lean culture. Again, by maximizing the delivery of services while consuming the fewest taxpayer resources possible. I have some examples to illustrate, and these are just examples. Lots of caveats. This is no way intended to call someone out, nor the decisions that were made, and because I'm sure the decisions were appropriate, but they are illustrative. At budget hearings just a week ago, the sheriff said that his office maintains a very expensive airplane for $80,000 a year. And according to the sheriff, the plane is only used 2 or 3 times per year. $80,000 is a substantial sum of money, and perhaps a lean culture may choose to use those resources differently. In the next couple weeks, the sheriff's office is seeking to acquire 30 new vehicles. Recently, the sheriff's office upgraded their standard vehicle to an Explorer that costs $8,324.28 more than the Caprice patrol vehicle. Now, $8,324.38 is not a lot of money, but it is $250,000 of savings for 30 vehicles. If not for any other purpose, the savings equates to 5 more vehicles that could be purchased. But I'm also sure an evaluation of priorities may find other areas for which these savings could be applied. At budget hearings, the district attorney's office has indicated that they don't have the time or resources or ability to bill for their crime lab. A lean culture could possibly generate the resources necessary to maximize billing and consequently fully fund the personnel of the crime lab, quite possibly including the new staff they requested. Now, in contrast, Kern Medical Center was recently in a very poor financial position, requiring many dozens of millions of dollars from the county. Yet with a change in culture and a focus on Lean Six Sigma, the hospital has, in a very short period of time, moved to a positive financial position. By this example, I'm saying that even complex organizations can change when using a disciplined, lean approach. When should we start this? Immediately. By way of this letter, I am asking for your board to provide input and direction on proceeding. I'm asking your board to consider establishing a lean subcommittee of the board. I'm asking your board to consider directing my office to provide a detailed plan of engagement that include setting the lean subcommittee meetings and agenda, revising the county's strategic plan and using this output as a platform for budget decisions, creating an assessment tool to prioritize lean efforts, consider contracted audits for performance and efficiency, create internal efficiency teams in every county department, disseminate quality improvement training and expectations. Currently, our mental health department is the county's leading edge on Lean Six Sigma, but this effort will need to be expanded to all departments. And again, focus on our known opportunities, the small stuff, as I mentioned in the letter. In short, consider creating a disciplined, immediate approach to leanness. Now, I recognize that this is a very expensive and resource-intensive project, but we really have few options on how to proceed. In summary, after a very challenging budget hearing, the county resolved only $15 million of a $45 million budget hole. And despite the teeth gnashing of last week's budget discussion, we still have $30 million of reductions to take before we are even out of the current budget deficit hole. And with stagnant oil prices, declining sales taxes, and potential dramatic increases in pension costs, the county must adjust to a new fiscal reality. Instead of continuing to shave down costs a few percentage points here and a few percentage points there, we must create more value from the considerable resources that taxpayers provide us. If not now, I don't know of a time when it is more appropriate to revisit our strategic plan and set a path towards leanness and quality. That concludes my comments, and I'm available for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Nylon. Let's open up to the public for comment. Anyone in the public wishing to make comment? Come on down.
My name's Lisa Green. I'm the district attorney. Chairman Gleason, I'm here to say, obviously, it must be obvious to all of you that this proposal cannot be forced on the district attorney's office. I'm sure you all understand that. I had a conversation with Mr. Nylon a few weeks ago where he asked me if I would be receptive, this is about 6 weeks ago, would be receptive to having a group come in to look at the district attorney's office and look at the efficiencies of the office. And I don't really know how you quantify the efficiencies of crime victims and of cases. I really don't know how you do that. But I told him at that time that I would be open to that. And he specifically mentioned to me that this had been something that had the Riverside district attorney had agreed in his office. And so I'm assuming that that's what Mr. Nylon is talking about here today. And I may be wrong, but if it is, I spoke with the Riverside district attorney this morning, Mike Hestron, and he told me that the initial, and he agreed to have it done in his office, but he was also, it was kind of foisted on him because he was in his first year of his first term. And he said that this examination by this company, and I don't know that, as I said, if this is who Mr. Nylon is talking about, but he did say it's a very expensive project. That initial examination cost $1 million. He then said there's going to be and his office actually came out of that looking quite good. But he also said now there's a second phase of that project. And that phase is going to cost Riverside County $18 million. And I stand here today, a week after being denied $360,000 to fund prosecutors on misdemeanors that we are now not prosecuting, and we are talking about spending $1 million? I don't know if that's the amount. We're talking about spending that kind of money to determine efficiencies. I can tell you that with the implementation of Tyler, the management information system that is now getting ready for implementation by all the safety departments in the county, that if I agree to a study to show the efficiencies of my office, we won't do very well, because we're implementing the Tyler program that's supposed to go live in September or October. There are going to be lots of hiccups along the way implementing. It's a huge project. I don't know if the sheriff feels the same way, but certainly the time to implement some type of program like this in my office is not now with the implementation of this new management system. I would respectfully say that the time to spend $1 million, that's not the time to do that now. Perhaps in a year, after we've had Tyler on board and we are able to know what the efficiencies are, how we have saved money, and I've spoken to each of you individually about how Tyler could end up allowing us to eliminate certain support clerical positions, but we're not going to know that now. So quite frankly, to be very honest with you, while I don't think this is necessarily a bad idea, and perhaps it will be implemented on other public safety departments and other county departments, I don't believe the timing is correct for the district attorney, the Kern County District Attorney's Office, to have any group come in and talk about the efficiencies of the department when we're going to this new management system. So I wanted to make my position on that very clear today. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Sheriff Donna Youngblood. First of all, you were all here last week. Did anyone in this room hear me say that we only use the airplane 3 times? I didn't say it, so I suspect you didn't hear it. Again, Mr. Nylon has misstated the information. What I said was the budget for the airplane is $80,000 a year. I have been in that airplane maybe 6 times in the 3 years that we've owned it. Nothing more, nothing less. He's welcome to come over and look at the flight logs and see what the airplane is used for, as any of you are welcome to come and look at that. The cost of the vehicles, I don't believe that it's $8,000 difference. I believe it's somewhere, my staff is checking, somewhere in the vicinity of $1,700 difference. But there's also some differences in those cars. First of all, we weren't allowed to piggyback off the state request, and we could have saved a lot of money. But we were required to not do that and keep the money within the county. If you recall, LASO piggybacked off Kern for the tasers that they bought for their county or their city to save money. We weren't allowed to do that. These cars have backup cameras that are come from the factory that we can't get on the others. That's a huge issue when it comes to accidents and saving money with those minor accidents. Also, they come standard with armor in the doors for the safety of the officers that we cannot get in the others. It may not be important to anyone else, but it's important to me in today's world that we have that type of safety in our vehicles. What we have in this county is a trust issue. It's not just the public not trusting our government. We don't trust each other within this county. And it's because of statements that I've heard over and over that are wrong that cause this distrust. I have this idea that the CAO has, there's some great suggestions in there of things that we might be able to do, but I don't trust the CAO. I've watched him mislead this board. We, in the county government, the rest of the department heads, I won't speak for them, I'll speak for me, but we've watched a power transfer in this county from the 5 people elected to make those decisions to 1 man. And it's wrong, and I think this board needs to correct that. So before we can go forward with something like this, we need to resolve some trust issues that we have with each other, and we need to learn to communicate better. We have a huge communication problem where one person says something and another person hears something else. What you saw last week at budget hearings was a board letter from the county administrative officer based on a rumor that he heard. When has that ever happened in this county before? Never. So I would caution this board to go forward. I'm an elected official just like the 5 of you are elected by the people of this county. I'm the voice of the public for public safety. I take it very seriously. I want to cooperate. I want to get along. I want to be a part of this team, but I can't, and nor can some of the other department heads under this type of environment. Thank you.
That I forgot. Thank you. Mr. Nyland mentioned about the $80,000 on the airplane. And I just want to tell the board that for 3 years, when there's questions and emails about ideas, cost savings ideas, what we can do, the CAO's office sends out an email. For 3 years, maybe 4, I have said, perhaps we should do away with the employee seniority gifts, 10 years, 20 years. Perhaps we should do away with those. I would say that a person's reward for longevity with the county is called a retirement. So I was curious about how much money the county spends on those gifts that we give to the employees. I myself have never accepted one of those gifts when I was a deputy DA, but a lot of people do, and I've been told that a lot of people look forward to it and they enjoy the gifts. But I don't know if the board knows that we spend $70,000 a year. And I was told by Mr. Nyland, I've had this conversation with him, I've had it with Mr. Brown, especially now because the contracts are being renegotiated, and that would have been the time to do away with these longevity gifts that we have. And I was told, that's $70,000, that's such a small amount. And it makes people happy. But if we're talking about figures of $80,000 and giving that as an example, how about the $70,000 we spend on those gifts? So because I talk to you more not as the DA, but as a taxpayer, because really, I think that would be a savings that would have been easy to implement, but now that will have to be put off. So just a different example that doesn't focus on public safety where we could be saving taxpayer money. So thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Michael Turnipseed representing the Kern County Taxpayers Association. Well, I made this suggestion, so I'm going to be here. There is going to be pain. This is going to be a different county when you get done going through this process, because there is a new normal in Kern County, and it requires a new culture. Change is absolutely mandatory, and I can tell you, if we don't make the changes necessary, 3 or 4 years of this Chinese water torture of a cut and another cut and dying of 1,000 cuts will be much more painful than going through this process. And gladly work with you and everyone else to make sure the process achieves the goals it needs to achieve, because I think we all realize what we have today cannot be sustainable. It can't go forward, so we have to do what we have to do. And there will be pet projects that have to go by the wayside. I think everything has to be on the table. I don't understand what flex pay is. I don't understand what a lot of things are. All the other things that the DA just talked about. But there can be no sacred cows. Thank you.
Thank you.
Lorelei Oviatt, Director of Planning and Natural Resources. So I'm one of the smaller departments. I have a mix of general fund contributions and then revenue generated from fees. I appreciate the letter that the board is being presented today. We have been interested in doing the Lean Six program, but mental health has an actual grant that's outside of the general fund so that they could afford to hire people to do this. And Human Resources was staffed by Kern Medical under a special agreement. So I've asked and talked to John about, I would like your board to set up a fund for Lean Six training that departments could bring forward a plan. You also could prioritize departments that you want to go through that. Each one of the trainings online, the one training was $2,300. For my department to go through would have 3 people get certified, including myself, is $6,900. That is not in the budget. And so I was pleased that John brought this, that Mr. Nyland brought this today, because I think your board, if your board is interested in this, then create a program and incentivize the departments to come forward. Second, as always, the Public Services Building, where we are on M Street, is kind of like a group of, a lot of the public works, environmental health portion of public health, and we all talk about how can we save money. And so we are looking at little things. For example, we are going to be discussing and bringing to your board the fact that when someone pays by credit card, the general fund is covering the cost to the credit card company. We would like to come to your board to discuss that. If a developer wants to pay by credit card, then perhaps they should absorb that and not the general fund. Those are the kinds of things we think, in my department, that your board meant But let's turn over every rock, let's look at everything. So I appreciate this item. I know that it is a very complicated system, and I also, as a department head, would like to think that we are in constant improvement. And when someone comes in and tries to understand how you process a conditional use permit, it is not only about the widgets, it's about the little old lady who stands at the counter and wants to talk for a couple of hours because she's upset about something. And I know that your board is not interested in turning us into a soulless bureaucratic process. What you're interested in is looking to see, are there places that we can save the taxpayers' money? Are we doing it the most efficient way we can do it? And are there ways for our staff to be more efficient in the 8 hours that they spend? So those are my thoughts as a department head, and I hope that you will look at some of the recommendations that Mr. Nyland has made. Thank you.
Thank you.
David Fluhart, Havilah, 1st District. I'm happy I don't have to try and figure out this situation. I don't get paid to do it and all that good stuff. Earlier today, I was talking about budgets and restructuring, and, you know, there's the cutting side, and then there's the revenue side and all that stuff. I'm just happy I'm the rambling village idiot in left field, happy about the airports. So, there.
Let's see. Any other comments? Okay, we'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the board. Ms. Nyland, any thoughts?
Well, I must comment on one area, one of which is the sense that I've been misleading your board. And from time to time, I do mishear things and I do misstate things, but I try every time to come back to your board, as I did budget hearings, with a slide that showed that there are different views on this. And so I will very carefully look at the tape, and if I misheard what the sheriff said, I will be back to you to apologize. It's never my intention to mislead the board or mislead any of the departments. But also suggest it's not easy. This is just one example of what I think people are going to come forward and say. You know, they're going to personalize it. They're going to take issue with significant change. It's something we should expect. It's not going to be easy, as Mr. Turnipseed said. It's just the nature of the beast. When you've been doing something for a long time and you're very wrapped up into it, you're going to have emotion to that. And I get that, and I understand that, but it's going to take discipline, and it's going to take a consistent message, and hopefully your board is that champion, because that's the only way we're going to make a change. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody? I don't see any hands, so I guess I'll jump in there. Heard a lot of good stuff, a lot of hard stuff that I'm not going to comment on because I'm going to value it. I need to sit back and not reject. I need to accept, and I need to find the value, because I believe that we have some damn good people working for us in this county, and I will think about things that have been said today, and that's what I'm going to do. One of the things I heard was one of the persons talked about communication. I couldn't agree more. I think we have some massive, not massive, forgive me, I don't have massive. We have communication issues, and that's a two-edged sword. I believe that it's, you know, quite frankly, I think both sides need to work on communication, and I'm willing to do my part to make communication work. I listened to the district attorney, and she was eloquent in what she was saying, and I'm sitting there listening to you. I'm saying, how are you going to come up with 5% next year? Is Tyler going to make you 5%? And if it does, great. If it doesn't, we're going to hold you to 5%. I mean, it's not because we want to. It's not because we like crimes being non-prosecuted. It's not because we like any of that stuff. It's because that's the real world we're in. We have a budget we must manage. We have a deficit of 70 million. We only got a portion of it.
You want me to respond?
Yeah, could you? Yeah, if you.
I'm happy to.
Thanks. But just keep it short, please.
Absolutely. I talked ad nauseum in the June hearing about what we've done in the office and the efficiencies of the office. But I would, in response to you, Chairman Gleason, I would say public safety, as I've said all along, should be and is government's #1 priority. And as much as Mr. Nylon in his slides, which were inaccurate, as I demonstrated to all of you, tried to suggest that that is the priority, hard decisions have to be made. And you can't make money, as I said before, in the criminal justice arena unless you're a criminal. So it's your job to give me the resources to put prosecutors in the courtroom, because if we don't have prosecutors in the courtroom, then the bad guys go free, and innocent people in our community, the ones that I'm sworn to protect, will be injured and will have no recourse to the criminal justice system. So my view of it is putting a 5% cut next year, and I didn't think that was in stone yet. In fact, it's my understanding that that was going to be re-examined by this board to spare public safety further cuts. We have to be able to prosecute the criminals, and if that means, and I will say it right now, if that means closing every library in this county to make sure that that's done so that deputies can be on the street to, when people call, they want a deputy sheriff to respond, and when they're arrested, they want a prosecutor to protect them, and that is your #1 priority. So that is a hard decision to make. This is the same message I said in June, and I'm saying it again, but you have to make it. And to say that we're all created equal is simply not true. You have to prioritize. That is your job. And then I do what I can do with what you give me, but crime is not decreasing. It is rampant. I don't have to talk about the number of homicides and the number of gang cases and all those things. So my response to you would be, I can't absorb a 5% cut, and there is no efficiency in the district attorney's office that ever is going to allow me to absorb a 5% cut. So I'll be up here next year if the board continues with the plan that's been in place, not sparing public safety from the 5% cut. I'll be here asking you for the same thing, and if I'm denied that next year, then we just look at adding more misdemeanors to the list. We go to property crimes. Where do we go from there? So that's my response to you. No. I'll say it right now. A year ahead of next year's budget hearings, I cannot absorb a 5% cut in my budget and still take care of the people of this county, and we are the last defense. Prosecutors are the last defense. I can't do that. And so I would ask you to make those hard decisions, the same ones I asked you to make earlier this year, to spare so that the citizens of this county will feel safe. Thank you.
Thank you. That may pose a problem. That's the problem. And the problem is that people of good conscience sit here today and think that safety is prioritized in our budget as it exists. And we went through our budget and came out of our budget with still the priority on safety. And there are good people who disagree with that and say that maybe some team that can help us understand solutions to that problem, because we don't want to get to that point next year. We don't want to have you here next year saying, I can't do it. No, we don't want to go there. That's what the whole point of this proposal is. And so I'm hopeful that you embrace it. I'm hopeful that you look at it and say it's an opportunity, give it a chance, and we may be able to avoid that. And we come to a common understanding of our role in funding you so that you can provide the protections you need. Secondly, I want to tell both the elected officials that spoke that I respect the fact that you are elected officials, and you were right, we do recognize that. And the last thing I want to say is that I'm going to take on board what you folks are telling me, and I'm going to work hard to build that trust. And I see Supervisor Couch has something to say.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The sheriff said, we don't trust each other. And that's unfortunate, but you might be right. There may be some truth to that. And I don't mean me and you or the board and you. I mean the board and everybody that works for the county and that relationship. I will do my best to never undermine that trust, and I don't believe that I have, but if I have in some way, I am asking you to tell me what I did, and I will do my best to make that right. Hard questions being asked, in my view, should not undermine that trust. And if they, and I'm not suggesting that they do, but I'm just stating if they do, I am sorry for that, but I will continue to ask the hard questions that I believe anyway need to be asked. That's why the people of the 4th District, which is only 1/5 of the county, it's not the whole county like the folks that elected you, but the people of the 4th District, I believe, elected me to do exactly that. I think it is also, maybe this is good that we're having this discussion, but our employees watch the meetings. And what they've heard from our meetings in the past 2 or 3 months probably concerns them. And I've heard we've heard a lot about how it's difficult to get people to come to work here. We certainly don't need to be having board meetings that if employees are watching them, they give them the climate that they really ought to be leaving. They ought to be looking somewhere else. And so I hope the message to the employees that are watching this, if they are, it's better here than it sounds like it is right now, I think. And I know the board is interested in if there needs to be some repair work in our relationships between the department heads, whether they're elected or not, or between the CAO. I'm willing to do that, but I think we're having these types of issues because we are in difficult times. And it was my hope that we would move forward with this, and in this process, the many different parts of this process that you laid out, Mr. Nyland, you would have department heads engaged in looking at efficiencies, and we would end up with, hopefully in a year, the possibility that we might not be doing across-the-board cuts. I know that's been discussed. I don't remember where it was discussed. Could have been here, could have been elsewhere, and I don't recall. But that was what I thought the goal of this was, to really dive deep for a year, scrub these budgets, and look at the way people are doing things. And by the way, I think this needs to be said. We're not saying you're doing it wrong. I'm not saying you've been doing it wrong for 30 years. I'm just saying, is there a better way to do it? And I don't know what all those ways are in your particular department, but I think we ought to be, the culture should be of continuous improvement. And maybe there are spots in our county that are doing it as well as they can be done. There is absolutely no room for improvement. We'll find that out. I hope that's the case with everyone, and we don't need to disrupt anyone's life, but it's important for us, I think it's important for me to go through that process and find out where those efficiencies could be made. And if, like Mrs. Green says, if it's efficiencies we find in the DA's office, it may not be an efficiency that we want to utilize, because maybe it's performing a function, or maybe it's whatever that is something that we really want to have happen, and there's no other way to do it that we can think of, or that she can think of. But I don't know that we get there and we have that level of comfort unless we go through the process that you've laid out here. And I, for one, appreciate the work you did on that, John, and I am supportive of it. And I would be interesting, we don't have to have the conversation right here, right now. It's probably not a good one to have, but I would be interested in having a conversation about how we have been misled and where we have been misled, because I want to know that. If that's the case, I want to know it, but I'd like to know the specifics of it. I appreciate both of you speaking today. I'm going to be supportive of this effort, and I'm happy to help in any way I can. Thank you.
Supervisor Scribner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I also want to thank the DA and the sheriff for coming forward and making those comments. I expected that we were going to have a very positive discussion today and about this issue, so I guess that shows I'm a little naive, and obviously there's still some residual left over from our difficult budget hearings that I think came out here today. Life is about relationships, and that's no different here at the county, and particularly with the CAO's office. I mean, we have a CAO, not a CEO, and so the budget guidelines and the negotiation between the CAO and all the departments is about trust. It's about everybody being team players, trying to be on the same page, recognizing the county situation. Obviously, that's different for the electeds because they don't answer to the board the way that the other department heads do. The budget's really the only time that we have any real control over their operations, with a few exceptions, but in general, that's a true statement. And so in regards to a couple of the comments that the DA made, you're right, Ms. Green, that we are going to be considering how public safety gets treated in the next budget year. We're also going to be considering how all the departments get treated in the next budget year. We had a plan for a 5% and then a 5.6 and then a 2.8 and a 2.2% cut. I believe that's the succession. And so we may or may not revise that. And the CAO's board letter under this item discussed the possibility of holding public safety harmless and also perhaps backloading the larger cuts in the later years of the 4-year plan to give departments time to identify efficiencies, to reduce positions through attrition, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But the fact of the matter remains that even if we don't cut public safety at all, or any of the other departments at all next year, there are still going to be layoffs that are more than likely because of departments that have burned through their BSI, and just the fact of the matter that retirement costs are going up, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So whether we cut you next year or not, we're going to have some hard decisions to make. And so that's why I think it's important for us to adopt all of the suggestions that Mr. Nylon has brought to us as goals that we can pursue, and some will happen sooner than others, and some are going to be easier than others. But the thing that we need to, I think, bear in mind is not only is oil down, and that's why we're all suffering because of the oversupply on the market, but we're living in a state where we produce 75 to 80% of the oil, and that industry is under attack by Sacramento. It's under attack by the majority party. It's under attack, I would argue, by the governor, maybe to a lesser extent than some of the legislators, but nevertheless, I believe that it is. And also, we have SGMA that's coming down the pike, where we're going to have to be implementing that by 2020. That may lead to the fallowing of a third of our farmland in this county. We don't know that for certain, but that's what a lot of folks are saying, somewhere in that neighborhood. And so you're looking at two of our major industries, oil being number one, renewable energy is two, ag is three. And so in light of the fact that two of our biggest industries are facing these challenges, we know that we cannot rely on the same revenue stream that we've been able to rely on in the past. And so that's why we are going to have to do things differently now than we ever have. And the best way to do that, I believe, is to ask questions about our processes in every aspect of the county, and to make sure that we continue to improve. And I think that was very well said, Supervisor Couch. So, Mr. Nyland, I want to thank you for bringing this forward, but I also want to ask you to do your best to repair those relationships that are obviously have suffered through this process of the budget with the two folks that spoke, and continue to foster that teamwork that we're going to need to have as a culture here in Kern County if we're going to get out of this and still provide the level of service that our taxpayers expect and deserve. So, thank you.
Supervisor Maggart.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am reminded of a movie that came out a number of years ago about Apollo 13, and it is a movie about a spaceship that is hurtling through space, and they have insufficient oxygen, fuel, water, and food to get home. And they are frustrated in this the three occupants of this little spacecraft are frustrated, and they begin to vent with one another, and pretty soon they're screaming and hollering and beating on the walls of the spacecraft, and the captain of the ship says something to the effect that, well, let's have our moment and let's vent. But bottom line is, we're still stuck in the spacecraft and we have to find some way to get home. I feel a little bit like that. We are all frustrated. We are, I think, to be blunt, more thin-skinned than we have been in the past. Almost every side is that way. And I wish it weren't so, but it is so. And it's clear by the comments made today that that's the case. So I would ask that all sides, as much as is possible, help us figure out how to get home here, how to get this to work. And I think it will help if we are very tactful in the way that we bring to the forefront the tough questions that have to be asked. But bottom line is, some tough questions are going to have to be asked. It is, I want to choose my words carefully. It is not prudent to refuse to analyze your department. We're going to have a very difficult year next year. I think it's likely, just like it happened this year, that the proposed 5% cut will be moderated and will change, and I still think that's likely to happen next year. But a refusal to analyze your department will not give you the tools you need to justify why your department should not be cut. You need to help us justify why your department has to be given a position of priority above almost everything else. And it isn't that I don't respect you. It isn't that I don't have great admiration for what you do. But the reality is, I don't have enough money to give you. Even if I cut way more than libraries, I don't have enough money to give you. So you have to help me justify why your department needs more at the expense of everyone else. And to refuse to analyze that is not a prudent thing to do. So I hope that you will find a way to do that. I'm speaking specifically to our district attorney. Our sheriff has said on numerous occasions, although I couldn't quite tell what you were saying there a moment ago, Sheriff Youngblood, about your participation in this program. But you've said many times before, come look, you're an open book, and I'm confident that you'll be open to people looking in your department. But I do think it's important that we be very tactful about how we go about that, and we do our dead level best to build a relationship of trust, because it's just going to be way, way harder if we don't. With all that being said, Mr. Nylon, you proposed a process that has a price tag. What is the price tag, and how do you propose that we pay for it?
Supervisor Magner, through the chair, thank you for that question. We don't know what the price tag is right now. We have to evaluate and create a plan so that we have the idea of what the price tag is and where the sources could come from. I do not envision a plan that would require the general fund to come up with $19 million. But I do envision a plan where each department dedicates one or more staff to an ongoing process to improve how the county operates, both in their office and in some other office. I do anticipate an opportunity for us to maximize all of our sources of funding, our AB 109 and all those sources of funding to assist us in making this happen. And I do envision an opportunity where two of the board members commit time to be on a subcommittee, and that's a resource that's very precious, and that they do that and they become the sounding board, and perhaps even reach out to community members who can also sit on this board, who can assist us in a few ways, one of which is, as Ms. Oviatt mentioned, is to find a way to fund Lean Six Sigma activities. My guess would be if every department head was told, if you spend $20,000, I'll give you $1 million, they would find $20,000. So my guess is we have to make it imperative for them. We have to make it as part of their performance. We have to move forward as if this is our only course of action. There may be costs associated with that, and when there are, I will bring them to your board and I will discuss them with you, and you can say, no, we can't afford that, we go in a different direction. But at this point, we're talking concept and we're talking about bringing back a plan. But I would very much appreciate your board's commitment to starting a committee and working with us to try and engage the community as well.
Well, I, for one, am interested in and support that concept. One of my concerns about this idea is that a lean organization, lean meaning the definition of what a lean Six Sigma, whatever you want to call it, that organization, for it to be successful, it has to kind of become part of the culture of the organization. And that means that we have thousands of people in the county's employ to convince to become of that mindset. That takes a lot longer than the next budget year that we have. So while I look forward to a process that will help us adopt those, to borrow a phrase from another discipline, that theology that will permeate the culture of our organization, I have a more immediate concern, and that is, where do I find money to be saved by the time we, in about 7 or 8 months, will begin discussing what our next budget is. So I don't want to, Mike Maggard does not want to cast all of my effort, all of my strategy in this one area. So some other analysis looking at the department is, each department is, I think, important that we do. So I'd like to hear more about, let's just dialogue about that for a second. Why don't we talk about that for a moment?
Yes, Supervisor Maggard, through the chair, I was talking about a 4-pronged approach, and only one of those would be a Lean Six Sigma effort. And that is an important effort, but you're right, it takes time. And sometimes you have critical processes that take 6, 12 months to resolve. And while it may improve performance, it may not result in cost savings. We also are looking at the creation of financial improvement teams, FIT teams, and that would require departments to assist, and we would ask the auditor controller and the human resources department and my department to form teams to go out and work with each department to find out if there are some low-hanging fruits where we can find immediate savings. Some of it may be in centralization of services. We've got some ideas, but we're going to actually meet with the department heads, I believe it's next week, to talk about their ideas on how we go about making sure that we have immediate results. There's also a concept of contracting out for major audits. DA Mrs. Green came forward with that concept. Yes, Riverside County has brought that to the fore, and if there is an opportunity to find a way to piggyback on that and find ways and resources out of non-general fund dollars to make that happen, that may find us immediate results as well. So we have a number of approaches, as well as making this the department head's responsibility. We talk about how do we infiltrate the entire system. Well, it starts at the very top and it works its way down, and so including all these as elements of their performance evaluation is a critical component as well.
Well, having some accountability as to a schedule of by when do we think we'll have the strategy, when do we think we'll have the cost identified, when do we think we'll have the revenue sources to pay for it. I'm interested in when you're going to help us lay that out, and I do support participation by the board in that process. But one of the directives that we've already given you has to do with a hiring freeze and not filling vacated positions as they become vacated through attrition or for whatever means that would happen. And we have already recognized that we don't want, I have said, I believe others have indicated their support for the concept of, we don't want attrition to winnow our deputy positions, so that we have way less deputies, our prosecutor positions so that we have way less prosecutors. We don't want that to occur, but I think we need to have a broader discussion about the implications of that and how we're going to put that in play, because we could very easily have tomorrow a member of the district attorney's office, maybe their life changes and they're going to move away, or they become ill and have to go home, or the same thing with the deputy. So I want to understand, and I want our departments to understand, not only our public safety departments, but our non-public safety departments to understand how are we going to implement this directive that we've given you, what can they expect, how can we help them fill those positions that are vital to safety, and how are we going to not fill the ones that are not vital to safety? So when do you think you might be prepared to come back to us so we can have a discussion about that level of this?
And Supervisor Mayor, through Chair, as you recall, that was a referral made quite recently. And what we've done and what we've committed to do is to meet with each of the department heads to talk about this process. How does it look? How does it feel? How can we communicate and create great trust with our department heads by meeting with them and trying to establish that? Elsa Martinez from my office is pretty much the lead on this project. She has done the analysis to find out where the funded vacant positions are. And we will be coming back to your board no later than the 20th, hopefully on the 13th, with a proposal that indicates how that is to be done, what the criteria is, where are all those positions, and what we'd seek from direction from you with regard to the very thing you're talking about, Mr. Maggard, whether or not the district attorney is exempt from having to hold any vacant funded prosecutorial positions. And those are the sort of things we're going to bring forward. We expect, as I mentioned, no later than 20th, but the 13th is a target date.
I'll conclude with this for now, because this is just the first of a number of discussions about this. But I have great respect for the district attorney, the sheriff, the CAO, for all of the elected department heads in our community and those that are appointed by us, which includes the CAO. I respect all of them. I want us to find a way to be able to have the most difficult dialogues with candor, and to have done it in a way that has disarmed all the potential sources of distortion or mischaracterizations or anything in that regard. So I don't know how we, I didn't appoint the elected department heads. I appoint you with my colleagues. So I would ask the elected department heads that have expressed such concern about this to redouble I would ask you to respectfully redouble your efforts to build a working relationship that you are trustful of, and I am directing our CAO to do the same in the other direction, because we're the best minds we have. We're the only team we have. I'm grateful that I respect and admire all of the team that we have, but that part has to get better, and I expect that it will get better, and I thank you for helping all of you guys for helping to make it better. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Supervisor. Supervisor Price.
Thank you. I remember before I became supervisor, reading certain headlines in the Bakersfield Californian that indicated that, or seemed to indicate or imply that the county was up to some shenanigans through the budget process. And it would be titles like the county fine, mysterious, or the county fines 40 million. You're nodding your head, John, as you recall these times. And I remember being so incredibly frustrated by that as an average person that did not have an inside view of what government is like, or this particular government is like. And I remember really feeling like there was an us versus them thing going on with government versus the regular person. Government is maybe hiding things and being mysterious about its intentions, and it caused incredible distrust on my part, just as an average tax-paying citizen. And that perspective has been very enlightened by my experience as a supervisor and with working with my colleagues, having the ability to learn from their expertise and seeing how incredibly complex this process really is. And I would have to say that my opinion has changed to a large degree. However, in my meetings with our district attorney, with our sheriff, and listening to them here, I'm incredibly disheartened to hear their perspective, because I don't believe that either of them would come forward and convey to us a real sense of distrust and sort of us versus them that I have heard from them, unless they absolutely genuinely believed that to be true. That is incredibly troubling, and it is extremely unfortunate. And to hear it time and time again just reiterates to me how much distance there really has developed for a whole host of reasons, some of them quantifiable and understandable, and some of them more visceral and less explainable, I would imagine. And so, in moving forward, fixing these problems, coming up with solutions for our budgets over the next few years is going to require incredible buy-in from our public safety departments. Incredible buy-in. It's going to take Donnie Youngblood no longer believing that there is a serious trust issue. Lisa Green, our elected district attorney, feeling that we use graphs and information that are simply misleading and are not true. That is a real problem. And I know that you know that. Mr. Nyland, I know our county council appreciates the implications of that, and that fixing that will require an actual genuine buy-in from the people that have been entrusted by the citizens of Kern County to protect them, their loved ones, their property. And so it's a little disheartening today, as I know you are also, John, because you tend to be the focus of a lot of this distrust and miscommunication that has gone on over the last year. You have a tough job. I don't envy you. But I just want to reiterate how critical it is that Donnie and Lisa in particular, everybody obviously, but our elected department heads who really have their own pulpits and their own constituencies that they serve independent from this county board, to buy into what we're doing and how it's going to be done. And if that means, independent bodies that we work really hard to procure their trust for, that I am, really excited about that prospect, and that appreciate that you bringing that forward to tell us, perhaps it's independent outside sources are going to have to find the graphs, get the data that is going to be trustworthy to both them and this board and to the public ultimately. I know you know that's important. Sometimes in the incredible responsibility and duty of our jobs, we can forget the perspectives, or, we're so busy and so dutiful in our own responsibilities that sometimes it just doesn't weigh as heavy as it could or should. And so, John, you have a lot on your plate, but it really is unfortunate to hear from them today the level of distrust and miscommunication that has transpired, and all of us are to blame for that to some degree or another. John, I'm eager to employ the expertise of folks that will come to the table and bring us back to the table, because we can't have information disseminated that some people believe is simply false, misleading, and perhaps intentionally so. I mean, that's often what I hear, and we cannot function that way. That is completely dysfunctional. And I appreciate your perspective. Lisa, Donnie, thank you for being honest and frank with us. John, I know you're honest and frank with us as well, but getting on the same page is so critical. And I'm eager to see the best way in which we do that, and perhaps it really does take an intermediary and a counselor, if you will, to get us back to the table together. And so those are my initial thoughts, and I really appreciate the thought and consideration that's gone into how we can get on the same page, because we're clearly not there, and we clearly need to be. And so thank you for your time and all of your team's efforts. We need the buy-in of these folks if we're going to make this work, the genuine buy-in. So thank you.
I agree with everything you just said. And I'm willing to absolutely, totally commit to this process. And I believe what other people said. If we cannot use the same process next year, in my opinion, to manage this budget that we used this year. I've said that before, I'll say it again. So we must be strategic, we must be innovative, we must find new ways of developing the relationships between the department heads and the county as a whole. We have to find those efficiencies, and the only way we're going to do that is if we have trust. And if we don't have trust, then it just is not going to work, and we will be back at square one. So I sincerely appreciate everything everyone said. I full-heartedly endorse this effort. I think This is a beautiful moment for Kern County because if we don't, it gives us a whole new way of looking at things. And if we don't take advantage of it now, we gloss over it and we kick this can, then it's a shame on us. And we'll be at the same thing next year and no one wants to be there. So I fully embrace this effort. I see, John, that you need a committee of 2 supervisors. I'd like to volunteer, seeing how I've got some training in lean. I don't know if you guys would want that or not. And Supervisor Couch, do you need names now? No. Well, Mike, you're it, and then, okay, I'll take me and Dave. Okay, we'll start off with that, and we'll be standing members of this committee. And so I'll be looking for recommendations to take this bold new step that's going to set us in a direction where we've never been before, and we don't know where we're going to go, but we will hit success. So I'm looking for a motion.
I'll make a motion to receive and file. Mr. Nyland, do you feel you have direction?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Second.
Please cast your votes.
Motion is approved, all ayes.
That brings us to the end. I'm ready to adjourn for the motion.
So moved.
Adjourned.